Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another live stream from the Next Level Studio. Cliff Ravenscraft here. And today I'm doing something different. I am actually inviting somebody else to come into my live stream so they can interview me for their podcast. I'll introduce this person in just a moment. I have over the years probably done at least 1,000 podcast interviews. And on average, right now, I do anywhere between 3 to as many as 10 or 15 guest appearances on other people's podcasts each and every month. It's one of the greatest ways, by the way, to get the word out about who you are and what value you bring to the table above and beyond anything else, just being a guest on somebody else's program where they've already curated an audience. Now, today I have decided to bring this individual into my live stream because during the month of May, I've made a special commitment. I'm creating one piece of public content every single day in the month of May. And so when Arfan Hussein, who had reached out to me, invited me to be a guest. I said, I will be a guest as long as you will do me one favor. Let me record it on my end, send you the video and audio recordings so that I can stream it live out to my community and it checks the tick box for piece of public content today. So without any further ado, I'm about ready to be interviewed by Arfan Hussein. Arfan, how are you today?
Cliff, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing excellent. I'm doing excellent today. Thank you.
Sweet. Well, from this point or up till this point, I've played the host of this live stream. I am now going to relinquish control. I'm going to take a drink of water. And from this point forward, it's your show.
All right, excellent. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I love the fact that what you're doing rhymes. A piece of content every day in the month of May. It just flows off the tongue and it rhymes really well. So all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I appreciate this so much, and we're gonna get started. I think we're gonna have a great conversation today. So, hey everyone, my name is Arfan Hussein, owner of Grow Automate Scale, and I am back with another expert interview. I have someone really cool, someone really awesome who's done quite a bit, and I'm super excited for this. I wanted to introduce everyone to Mr. Cliff Ravenscraft. And Cliff, how are you doing today, sir?
Arfan, the answer to that question is that I have never been better, but it gets better every single minute of the day.
Awesome. I love that so much. So, why I'm so excited to have this interview today, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to me, but I feel for so many others out there, those who are stuck in this place. So, we're talking about transitioning from employee to business owner and the essential mindset shifts needed to overcome fear and achieve lasting success. And when I spoke to Cliff, I felt like I can't imagine anyone better than to share this topic and to actually share his mindset because he's done this himself in 2008. That's right, 2008, correct?
Yes, that's
In
correct.
2008. So, and along the way, he's generated millions in sales and done many different courses and coaching programs and have really uh, been the gamut as someone you can really look up to as someone who's really done this work and has really an expert level, a master level in this. So, um, again, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate this. I think it's gonna be extremely valuable for everyone who's listened to this.
Well, Arfan, I am super excited, my friend. This is one of my favorite topics, this idea of transitioning from the mindset of an employee to having that mindset of a profitable business owner. It did not come easy for me. It was a lot of hard earned lessons along the way. And anytime I get an opportunity to share that with people who are at those aspiring stage or early stage entrepreneurial journeys, I love this opportunity. So I thank you.
Awesome. So I want to kind of back up way back into 2008. I keep saying 20. I'm so used to saying 2024 and 2020. So 2008. What really inspired you to transition from? And you could talk about what you transitioned from. Of course, we'd love to hear that. But what inspired you to transition from being from the career you had, a lucrative career, into becoming a business owner?
Sure. So for 12 years prior to full-time self-employment, I was an insurance agent. I sold auto, home, life, health, and business insurance. in a
Mm.
family-run insurance agency started by my grandfather in 1937. So I was next in line to take over the family business. My mom and dad owned it at the time.
Ah.
I was incredibly successful in sales. I was one of the top insurance agents in the United States, on multiple different levels for different lines of business. And I figured this is what I'm gonna do with my life until I discovered podcasting as a hobby. I was sitting around listening to various different podcasts once I was introduced to this technology in 2005. My wife was watching this show called Lost, and I'm like,
Mm.
"Okay, I am hooked on whatever's going on this TV show." And lo and behold, there were 5 different podcasts devoted to the TV show Lost.
Oh,
I
really?
subscribed to all of them, and just like it was just a passion, it was just a hobby, and I began to blog about what I was learning on my blog. And I came up with this theory about what was going on the show based upon everything that I'd seen. I did screen captures, all this other stuff. And after I put that theory together, I thought, this is really good. I think I'm really onto something. So I recorded a 3.5 minute audio file of me summarizing my theory and then putting a link in that audio summary back to my blog. And I submitted that to the Transmission podcast hosted by Ryan and Jen Azawa in Hawaii.
Mm.
They played my 3.5 minute audio summary in their podcast, which put me out to tens of thousands of listeners.
Wow.
One of those listeners happened to be somebody who was on the editorial team for EW, Entertainment Weekly. And
Mm.
so Entertainment Weekly went and read my blog, did an article about it, and then proceeded to send millions of people to my website, which caused it to get shut down, bandwidth exceeded, account suspended. Please
Yeah.
contact the billing department.
Wow. That's
So
awesome.
that's how I got introduced to this whole world of online uh, audio podcasting, if you will. And some folks suggested, "Hey, Cliff, why don't you start your own podcast?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll start my own podcast." And by the third episode, we had 27,000 subscribers. And now all of a sudden, a guy in Northern Kentucky who most people had never heard of, except for a blog, maybe 300 people around the world with a decade of blogging experience had heard my name, but now tens of thousands. It was
Wow.
insane. And of course, the feedback that was coming in was pretty profound. People are like, wow, I really am resonating with what you and your wife are sharing in these podcasts. We began to create other podcasts to answer questions that people had about family, marriage, parenting, financial planning, just business, all
Mm.
these different topics. And I had passions. So I just created lots of different podcast shows, and I eventually began to ask myself, man, what would life be like if I could do this for a living instead of
Yeah.
selling insurance? This is far more aligned with what I feel led and inspired and desire to do in the world than the insurance business. And
Yeah.
I hadn't had any problem with the insurance business until I started podcasting. But once I started podcasting, and it was about 7 or 8 months into it, I began to see insurance, my career as an insurance agent, as profitable as
Mhm.
it was a distraction from what I most wanted to do in the world.
I love that story. I love that story because it speaks so much about just pursuing something that you love, taking a hobby and turning into something that goes beyond that. Now it creates an impact and does so much in the world. And what was really interesting is that I feel like a lot of, including myself, when I was making the transition, a lot of stuff started coming up when I started putting business out there, started getting some traction in business, and thinking about, hey, making this full time transition. I started having a lot of just limiting beliefs and things like that come up. So I know we're going to talk a lot about the mindset and things like that. But were there points during this phase that you started identifying that you were maybe getting in your own way, or things were kind of coming up that you had to deal with, mindset wise, or just anything in general?
Oh, left and right. First and foremost, I'll never forget the 2 or 3 weeks before I left my job. So I put a 90-day notice in. So I had from
90 days.
September. yeah, it was my mom and dad, right? And so, and
Yeah.
I played a pretty critical role in the company. So I gave them a 3-month notice. And during that final few weeks in December of 2007, I'm like, what have I done? Is this the biggest mistake that I have ever made or will ever make in my life? What I who am I to think that I could go out and make this hobby and turn it into a profitable full-time career? I have job
Yeah.
security like nobody's business, and this was right before the crash of 2008. And so even before the actual crash, people were getting laid off left and right
That's
in
true. That's
in the
true.
financial industries. And so it's like, what am I doing? And so I had so much fear. I was, quite frankly, I was worried about what other people would think of me, especially the people that I knew who had been laid off and they thought
Mm.
their jobs were secure. And it's like, Cliff, what do you think you're doing? You're a sole income earner for your family. You have a stay-at-home mom, wife who is taking care of 3 young kids. What are you doing? Now, nobody actually said those things to me, but that was my fear. What are
Yeah.
other people going to think about what I'm doing? What will people
Mm.
say? What if I fail? What if I fail miserably? What will this
Mm.
mean to my ego if all of a sudden go and I have to go back and get my job back as an insurance agent, that I couldn't cut it in the world. There was all sorts of mindset related to that. Then fast forward past January 2008, now all of a sudden I'm in my first year of business and I'm working myself almost to death. And I'm not saying that with hyperbole. I literally almost died after my first year in business
Mm.
because of all of the anxiety, the fear, the worry, and the overwork, and my own lack of physical health and fitness activity. So I worked around the clock, 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for 9 months without a single day off.
Woo.
During that 9 months, the business was generating revenue, but it was paying for the overhead of the business. Like it
Mhm.
paid for health insurance for our family because we were self-employed. It paid for the CPA who handled the taxes because who knows how to do that? I certainly didn't.
Yeah.
And he handles all of those things. And then there was the overhead of subscription services, internet, the tools of the trade. But then there was no money left over each month for the first 9 months to pay me. No money.
Mm.
0 income for 9 months.
Wow.
Finally, things were starting to pick up during the last quarter, and I'm like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna take 1 day a week off." But I had to go to my employer and ask, "Hey, can I take a day a week off?" And my employer says, "On one condition." And I'm like, "What's that?" And he says, "Well, you've gotta make up those hours by adding hours to the other 6 days of the week." And
Uh,
I'm like, "What?" By the way, my employer was me, just in case you didn't pick up the sarcasm here. So, it was my own limiting belief that says that the only way you're gonna do is so for the final 3 months of the year, I was probably going to bed right around 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was starting between 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, and almost no sleep at all. And to celebrate my first year in business, I ended up doing a 24-hour nonstop podcast marathon, recorded 24 podcast episodes in 24 hours, publishing them as I went along the way. And after that was finished, I celebrated with a trip to the hospital where I almost died. I had massive gallbladder attack. I had gallstones everywhere, one stuck in my cystic duct, and it was not looking good. But that was my first year in business, and all of that because of my belief system and my mindset. I was just not prepared to be a business owner.
yeah, I want to like my microphone just fell over all of a sudden. I grabbed the cord. So if everyone's telling me got up there, that's what happened. So, um, there's so much there that we could look back in hindsight and say, hey, we could look at the mindset, we could look at the shifts needed to make, we can look at like how to do it a little differently. but going through it, it's challenging because we're just kind of swimming against the current, and you know, just pushing against that. And one of the things that I think a lot of people face when they're going through it without having a wisdom or someone to kind of help guide them along the way is, you know, really looking at like how do they overcome those fears on their own, and being able to take those actions to just to continue pushing forward when you're already doing like 9 months, 13, 14 hours a day. Like any person would just hit burnout and say, I'm done, I'm giving up, I'm going back to mom and dad, I'm going back to the insurance company. So I would really love to just dive into now just the mindset shifts that you think are just essential for those people who are really at that transition place where they're ready to go, like they're ready to put their notice in, they're ready to now take the effort, but they don't really know what's going to come, right? They don't really know the actual challenges that are actually going to come. Like that for me, that first initial putting my notice in was those fears of like, what people gonna think, what's my mom gonna think, like she raised me to get a good job and to get a good degree and to be secure and be safe and have a steady paycheck. What's she gonna think? She's an immigrant, she worked 3 jobs and she helped to just get me to a certain place. What's she gonna think? What's other people gonna think? What would you say, what's the initial first thing you would say if someone's just, they're still working, what's the one mindset thing that they need to start working on right now or start believing in themselves?
Sure. So there are two pieces of advice that I want to give before we get into the mindset. But if I'm speaking to somebody who still has the day job and they're ready to quit and go launch this thing, number one, first piece of advice, don't quit your day job. Not just yet. And number two, whatever you do, don't quit your daydream.
Mm.
Okay. So what I mean by that is don't quit your day job until your daydream is generating revenue. Now,
Mm.
for
Makes
me,
sense.
when I put my 90-day notice in, I was already earning about $3,000 to $5,000 a month consistently every single month in my online side hustle business. All right, so that's a very important thing. And so even though I was
Yes.
and that was money that I was making in my free time outside of my normal business hours of an insurance agent. So my thought was if I'm making $3,000 to $5,000 a month doing this in my free time, obviously if I put my most productive 40 hours a week into this thing, I'm going to see a pretty significant return on that investment. Little did I know that there were some limiting beliefs that were going to be coming my way. But the first thing is I want to make sure that I tell people, anyone, my advice is make sure you have a good runway. There's a
Mm.
reason why I was able to make it in this experience and not give up. Number one, I was incredibly well paid as an insurance agent. I had an incredible savings. My wife and I had become debt free except for our mortgage. We had a big, huge bonus that final year that I was in insurance, and I was able to live without an income for 9 months. Now it wasn't
Mm.
comfortably, but we did do that. And also, uh, this is a part of my story. I ended up for the final 3 months, or no, not for the final 3 months, for the third quarter of 2008, I ran out of the emergency fund. I ran out of the savings, and I ended up taking, I think it was $12,000 or something like that, or maybe it was, I needed 9,000, and I took out $12,000 out of my retirement account. So I had to pay taxes and penalties and
Yeah.
all that other stuff. But I had the financial means that allowed me to make this leap, and I also had a validated set of products and services. So don't quit your day job until your daydream is producing revenue that you feel like this and you have some time, and recognize income doesn't just magically just keep continuing to show up. So that's the first thing that I want to say. A couple of things that I will share as far as mindset is concerned. Number one, you have to overcome any limiting belief you have about whether or not you have the ability to sell. I don't care what
Mm.
your online business is, or what your self-employed venture is, if you're an artist, if you're a freelancer, if you do graphic art, whatever, I'm going to tell you right now, you have to understand that you have this new identity. I am a sales and marketing person. Unless you have the money to go hire somebody to do that for you, you're going to need the skill of selling. So sure, by all means, go and take your area of genius, your expertise, and go and create that. But make sure that you devote at least minimum 3 to 5 hours a week, every single week, to reading, studying, learning the techniques and skills of sales and marketing, and also make sure that you're putting in about 5 to 10 hours a week in the actual process of marketing your business. The next thing that is on top of there, the mindset, is the whole idea about money. You're going to have to understand that if you've been paid, let's just say $20 an hour, your employer would never have hired you for $20 an hour unless what you're doing in the business is worth at least 70, 80, 90, $100 an hour or more. Because as a business owner, you're going to not only pay yourself a paycheck, but you're going to, and you're probably already familiar with the fact that they take out federal federal taxes and Social Security and stuff like that. Well, depending on how you're set up, chances are you're going to have to double that for Social Security and federal taxes on the employer contribution side. Your employer's been doing it all along. All right. And then you need to think about your benefits, such as health insurance and all these other things. And there's overhead and there's all of these expenses. And quite frankly, most people struggle charging what is necessary to actually have a profitable business. And that was one of my biggest hangups, was just this money mindset. I started out at $50 an hour. And quite frankly, there's just no way you can have a profitable business and be the sole income earner of a family of 5 in my area and make $50 an hour as a full-time self-employed business owner. It just will not work out. It is at $50 an hour, no matter how great you are in what it is that you do, you're still going to go month after month after month, making all that's necessary to pay for the benefits, making all that's necessary to pay your CPA and to pay for all your subscription and your internet and buy whatever little ancillary little things here for the overhead of your business. But at $50 an hour, you are not going to be bringing home a paycheck.
It's not going to work. Yeah, I love that. That's an excellent tip, because I can, I felt back on my own experience transitioning, and I had a little bit different, because it's like you were doing it yourself. You were already working as insurance. You were building something on the side, so you're putting in the double time, the hours into that. Whereas with my transition, my wife was the one building up the business on her side, and then I was supporting her. But the piece you mentioned about the finances, that was big, because that gave us a lot of peace and security, knowing that we can transition, and that worst case scenario, we had 6 months. And if at the end of the 6 months, I can go back and get a job or something, like, go back into it, if worst possible case scenario. But that just having that peace of mind, that security, knowing that the business is already generating income, you're producing income, you're not fully replaced the salary, but it's producing enough income, and there's a cushion there, plays a big role in keeping that security. At least I know that was true for me. And you mentioned the sales, and one thing that comes up, and I hear this so much, especially when I talk to people who have not yet transitioned or are thinking about it, the common thing I hear is, I hate sales. I'm not a salesperson.
I hear it all day, every day.
And it's something where what you just mentioned about just taking that identity, I think, is super important. That's a big takeaway. Just if anyone listens, that's a big takeaway. Own the identity. That if you're saying you hate sales, stop saying that right now, because that's good. Would you agree with that? Like, stop saying change that language around, use different words.
You have to. As soon as you say I hate sales, and you're actually looking to grow a business as a full-time self-employed person, if you say I hate sales, you're basically saying I hate getting new paid clients. I hate having people learn about who I am and what I can add, or how the products and services I have can add value to their lives. I hate eating. I hate paying my bills. I hate
Mm,
I hate being able to make ends meet. That because
wow.
you are literally saying the same thing. If you hate sales and you're not willing to change your belief about your identity as being a salesperson, then stay with the day job and let somebody else do the sales. And you can just be the person that does your skill.
Mm. I like that. I like that. Awesome. Okay. So we covered quite a bit so far. Anyone listening to think about transitioning, you got some golden nuggets from someone who's done this many, many years ago and also survived, right? Because when we think of having a lasting successful business, it's not just being able to survive the first year or the second. There's statistics out there in terms of most businesses. There's a large percentage of business that don't survive past 5 years, and an even larger percent don't even make it past 8 to 10 years. So when we think about now positioning and going into like, hey, I want to do this, and I don't want to be the guy that goes 6 months later go back to a job, or 12 months later go back to a job. What are some other shifts that need to happen to kind of think more long term and like, hey, I'm going to go at this for the long haul. I'm in it to win it. I'm not quitting this. I'm not giving up. What are some shifts that need to be made there?
Yeah, there are three other shifts. The third shift, so we've already talked about money mindset, and we also talked about changing your identity about sales and
Yes.
your beliefs about sales. So the third one is self-discipline. Now, when I was an employee, which for those first 30 some odd years of my life, I would not have described myself as a self-disciplined person. uh, I pretty much had parameters of my most of my working life up to that point was, hey, you work Monday through Friday from this hour to this hour. If you
Hmm.
show up, you get paid. If you don't show up, you don't get paid. And there was enough pain and pleasure associated. So there was enough pain of the idea of not showing up at Monday at this time and Friday at this
Yeah.
time. And there was enough pleasure of getting the paycheck if I do it that I just went ahead. That's about as much discipline as I had. It's like I went and I did it. And when I'm there, I might as well do what I'm getting paid to do. So that was my discipline. But when I became full-time self-employed, I will tell you that I had a lack of discipline problem. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is I no longer have anybody telling me what time I need to wake up. I no longer had anybody telling me how many hours to work. I never had anybody telling me what I need to focus on, when I need to focus on it, when I need to shift from one thing over to another thing. I had no
Yeah.
managers giving me any clear direction of exactly how all of this stuff fits together. And so for me, so much of it in the first few weeks and the first few months was, well, gosh, what do I do with all this free time? Wow, I finally get to choose my own schedule. I get to do all this stuff. I'm going to sleep in until 9. And I know that
Yeah.
I said earlier that I work 12 to 14 hours a day, but what I'm saying is that I had to get into some discipline, right? And so that was the
Mhm.
first thing, is I need to begin to create some routines. And thankfully, I did. I eventually said, okay, wait a second. I need to treat this as though I am this, that I've got a job to do, that I am self-employed.
Yes.
And in a way, I began playing multiple characters in this drama called Self-Employment Journey. And that is, I had to play the role of the employer and had to play the role of the employee. And so I had to set down some guidelines, like, listen, here's the business hours, here's what we're doing, and all this other stuff. And so I had to identify myself into different roles, and needed to put boundaries. It's like, listen, I can't just work in the business. I also need to work on it. So
Yes.
I need to start limiting the number of hours that I'm coaching people one-on-one, so that I can reserve enough time to market my products and services to people who will hire me later. And to do that, I actually need to learn a couple of skills about how to do that effectively using social media and strategies and skills like copywriting. And so I needed to go and take courses, or I needed to listen to podcasts, or I needed to read books, and I needed to study how to do this different type of sales than what I had done as an insurance agent. There's a lot of skills that I needed to develop, but I guess initially my thought was, I'm just going to show up, people are going to hire me, and all day every day I just get to do what I love, which is to coach or to get behind a microphone and to just talk. And there was just a lot more self-discipline that was necessary. It's like, listen, I know that I love to do all these things and I could do it all day every day and just be totally fulfilled, but guess what? It doesn't pay the bills. There's other rules. There are other rules that need to be played, and there needs to be balance, and there needs to be routine. There needs to be blocked out time for different categories, and self-discipline is something that must be mastered.
I like that a lot, and I can see a lot of that to my own life too. I know when I probably about 6 months into it, my wife and I sat down, both of us like wrote out every single thing we're doing. I was like, oh, I'm the ads manager. I'm also the funnel builder. I'm the copywriter. I'm doing all these things, and it allowed us to really get a lot more involved into like how are we actually managing our time, and also what needs to be delegated after a certain point, because I wasn't the strongest copywriter. I needed to educate myself and get into really work on that skill. So I really love that. So self-discipline and getting routines in place. And that goes a pretty far away, because like you mentioned, no one's there to tell you what to do, to point a finger in it, or to track no one's like tracking your KPIs and telling you, hey, you're not performing, or hey, Arfan, you gotta, you're not closing enough sales, or that or third. It's really all on us, and it really takes that extra layer of self-discipline, is what I'm hearing, in order to do that. And one of the biggest things that help with that transition is really like being able to look at the roles you're doing and treat it in a sense of like from a little bit more of an eagle's eye, to look down and say, hey, these are the individual roles I'm doing, and to be disciplined and do those things at a realistic level. If you suck at something, say you suck at something, and how can I learn and improve that skill, versus just willy-nilly, not really having any rhyme or reason to the day, and putting in a bunch of hours, but maybe the hours aren't maximized to the fullest, or to get the most out of it. And I think that's probably a big shift for a lot of people, because I was there too. Once I became out of a job, I thought I was free. And I was free. I took that freedom, but took it to a big level to where I don't have to really do anything today. I can probably just relax and chill. Maybe I don't need to write that email, but really putting that discipline is what's going to really set up now for long-term success, not just the 6 months or the 12 months, but way further down, the 4 or 5 to 10 years down the road. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So part of that going into it too, right? So we have all these roles, and what ended up happening, I come across in the transition period, a lot of entrepreneurs end up struggling, and this something happened to me, end up struggling with just having a work-life balance and basically facing burnout. So I know you mentioned there was 3 others, or there's 2 more now, 2 more mindset shifts. So where do we go? It's like, again, thinking of all these things, right? And again, thinking long term, what are the other 2 mindset shifts now that can really help to secure that long-term success?
Yeah. So the 4th mindset shift is what you believe or think about the importance and the prioritization of self-care. Now, this is something, quite frankly, I gave 0 attention to in January 2008. And like I said, my story is I ended up in the hospital and I almost died in January 2009. So self-care became a very top priority for me following that experience. And so I began to really look into what is self-care. And prior to that, I had beliefs that self-care was kind of selfish, that self-care is kind of like, it's like nobody should be sitting around resting when there's work to be done. And nobody should be resting when the money's not there to put food on the table. I mean, come on, seriously, you've got to just work. And so self-care just was not a thing. However, what I have learned since, if I would have known what I know now about the importance of self-care, if I would have created a routine, and I'm just going to give you something that I think would be realistic for that time, because I'm very familiar with what my life looked like back then. But here's what it could have looked like if I knew about this importance. I could have woke up right around 6 o'clock in the morning. And from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning, that could be spent not checking email, not checking
Mhm.
anything social. Of course, January 2008, there wasn't a ton of social back then like
Yes.
there is today. But still, there was social. There was Twitter was out and Facebook was out. But anyway, the first hour of the day, kind of just just sitting back and thinking and reflecting, journaling, prayer, meditation, reading
Yes.
something inspirational, and just really sitting down and relaxing and kind of just having a good overall positive vibe to start the day. Don't think about
Mm.
anything. Don't worry about anything that's coming the rest of the day. I just want the first hour from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. is all about just sitting here and appreciating the gift of life that I have. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing that I would do. From 7 to 8, I would devote that to some level of person or physical development. So I would go for a walk, go to the gym and work out, get a cardiovascular, do a little strength training, stuff of that nature. If I am traveling to and from the gym, the commute to the gym, I'm going to listen to some sort of professional or personal development material that trains and educates me. But then I'm going to get that workout, and then I'm going to come in and come home by 9 o'clock. Right up between 9:30, I'm going to start my work day. And that will be the first time I check my email. That's the first time I look at my calendar commitments. That's the first time I
Yeah.
look at my to-do list. And the other thing that I would do, knowing this, and it kind of ties back into routine, is I'm going to look at everything and I'm say, okay, if, what are the top 1, 2, or 3 things that are the most important things to me for me to accomplish before I go to bed tonight or before I end my workday? And I'm going to prioritize those top 1, 2, or 3 things. And I'm going to understand that if I don't get everything done by, and of course, I'm still going to give myself the 2008, reality of there's a lot of things that need to get done. So
Mhm.
imagine I'm starting at 9:30. So I'm going to say at 5 o'clock, I need to stop working and have dinner and time with my family. And yes, I might come back and I might work from 7 to 9:30. And but the thing is those are by 10 p.m. I am in bed. And so from 10 p.m. to 6 p.m., I've now got 8 hours of sleep. If I would have routinely done that, I absolutely am convinced I would not have experienced I would have avoided 70 to 80% of the anxiety, the worry, the fear, and
Mhm.
the doubt, and the lack of self-confidence, all of that because I just did not have a self-care routine.
I can attest to that will help because in my own personal experience, about 2 years into my business, it got to the point of like the a really great height of success. And both my wife and I, we were doing 70, 80 hours a week. She's the CEO in the back end, I'm CEO in the front end, also delivering, doing everything. And it got to the point where there was no routine in my own life. And I ended up getting to 36% body fat, hitting depression. And I was clinically about to get to burnout. And one of the biggest thing was end up getting to a low in the business. And I went on a 2-day hike in the mountains. And like you
Nice.
said, like while there's money to be made, there's mouths to feed. You can't really, like, it's the hustle culture will tell you not to do that. Would say no, you got to get to the grindstone. You can burn out later. You got to get to it. So I can attest for having those simple routines, even if it's not 6 to 7 or 7, like exactly structured like that. Even if it's just something that works well to allow for a calmness and a reduction in anxiety, because those were the things I had to implement in my own life, to get out of that phase where I was like, I don't know, I'm making a whole bunch of money, but I hate this. Like, I don't really enjoy this at all anymore. So I can attest that that is true. What you're saying, right? What Cliff is telling everyone right now is golden. And if you're at a place where you're not there yet in terms of doing 12, 13 hours, or have made that transition yet, and you may have that hustle culture type of mindset, to really switch it now into a self-care, really holistic, taking care of your body, taking care of yourself. The whole airplane analogy, right, where it says to put your oxygen mask on first before you try to help everybody else. And it's hard, it can sound cliche, but it's so true. And from your own experience, I mean, you almost, like, in the hospital, almost died. Like, that's extreme. Mine, I would have probably been there if I continued for another 6 months. I could have seen myself potentially getting there. So I appreciate that. That is golden advice for anyone. And even now, if someone's listening to this, I know a lot of people in my audience who are more tenured, are more seasoned, who passed the 5, 6, 7, 8 years in business, who aren't even giving themselves fully that level of self-care to include. It's never too late. It's never too late to start doing that. At least I feel that it's never too late to start doing that.
Yeah, and it's never too late to get back to it as well. I just want to say that if you once
True.
had a great self-care routine, but somewhere along the way, you have maybe let that slide, it's not too late to get back at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I'm loving this over. I think it's so extremely helpful. And we covered 4. So we covered, you're in sales, so shifting that identity, the self-discipline, the routine, really around
The money mindset.
the money mindset. So those are the 4. There's one more you got for us, and I'm love to hear this, because this is
It
all good so far.
this one right here, I would have not succeeded in business. I would have failed, and I would have gone back to what was known and what was comfortable without this last one. And that
Mm,
is upgrade your peer group. Your life will be the direct reflection of the expectations of the people you spend the most time with.
wow, love that.
So prior to being full-time self-employed, most of my time and my peer group was spent with people who are also employed. People who thinks, "Wow, you get paid $50 an hour to do what? That's amazing. How do you do that? How do you sleep at night?" That sounds like you're taking advantage of people. These are people who think that $50 an hour is a lot of money. Whereas as soon as I started to surround myself with other fellow Cliff, and when I started to actually upgrade my peer group, um, in a pretty drastic way, I was at, let's just say, $150 an hour, and they're like, wait, you do one-on-one coaching, and you only charge $150 an hour? What?
Yeah.
How do you make ends meet with only charging so that's the difference in the mindset and the conversations
Yes.
between doing life with other business owners who understand what it takes to run a business, operate a business profitably, versus doing life with employees where the average person is, well, back in 2008, for me, the average person was making, let's just say, $20 to $35 an hour. And
Yeah.
they just don't understand life at the level of the business owner, the amount of risk that's involved, and all the other things that happen. So for me, that was the biggest game changer. Now, during that first year, I can tell you right now, if I had the peer group that I have today, I probably would have walked away in my first year in business with probably about $100 to $200,000 in personal profit, if
Wow.
I simply met once a week, every week, with the group of people that I hang out with every week today. But those people were not in my life. I didn't know any of them in 2008. But I
Mm,
told you that I wouldn't have made it in my first year in business had I not upgraded my peer group, which I did do. There was one person in my life who was full-time self-employed. And
mm.
he was the one person who got on a call with me and talked me off the ledge every single time I thought it was time to give it up and go back to insurance. He was the
Wow.
one person who says, Cliff, this is normal. This is not, let me tell you, this is just how things work. You've got this. I'm telling you what you've built. There's momentum that's growing. You can't throw in the towel. And if I did not have this one person who was a business owner who had been through everything I'd been through, that if I didn't have him in my peer group, I wouldn't have stayed in business.
That's
Now,
powerful.
I did have another peer group that kind of up-leveled a little bit. I started a Google group. All right. So this is old technology. I think they still have it today. Google Groups is still a thing. And this is a technology where you could put a bunch of people into like an email circle, and you email this group, and every time you send an email, everybody gets an email in their inbox. And if you hit reply, everybody gets the reply. So that's what this tool does. It's kind of like online forums, except for it's all done in email. So
Yeah.
I created a personal peer group of people that I thought would support me. Now, some of them had business experience, but not necessarily full-time self-employed. And some of them were just very positive-minded people who supported me. But I surrounded myself with a supportive peer group. So people who were not going to question whether or not, what do you think you're doing, right? So I did build that. Interestingly enough, I told you there was a time in the third quarter of 2008, there wasn't enough money to put food on the table. I needed to take money out there. I mean, the business was still paying the overhead, but I need some food some money for the table. So I did take some money out of my retirement account. But another thing somebody suggested to me, Cliff, why don't you apply for food assistance, food stamps? And I'm like, oh, there's no way. That is like the way that I was brought up, that's just I couldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And so I brought this up to my wife. She goes, well, why don't we do that? It'd be nice to have a consistent flow of food coming in.
Yeah.
That would be kind of nice, Cliff. And I was like, so I went to the Google group, right? And this is the importance of a peer group. All right. So I sent an email and I said, guys, here's what the situation is. Here's the update. Here's how things are going. Somebody suggested that I apply for food stamps. What do you think? The first guy who responded said, that's it. Cliff, this is where I draw the line of my support. I can no longer, in good conscience, encourage you to consider this pursuit. You've crossed the line. I think it's time for you to go get your job back with your mom and dad. I was rooting for you, but it's clear that this isn't working out. You're 9 months in. By this time, my recommendation is, if you are at the place where you're thinking about this, it's time to head back to the insurance office. And that confirmed all of the fear and all of the worry and all of the doubt. Everything. It confirmed everything. And if that was the only person that responded, I would have given up right then. But within about 3 to 5 minutes after that, the next person in this email group, there were 10 people. He was the first of the 10 to respond. Within just 3 to 5 minutes, the next person said, Cliff, before you do anything, remove so-and-so from this group. Next, after you've removed him from the group, go apply for food stamps. Here's why. The system was created for people like you. It was created as a temporary stopgap for somebody who could really use this. And quite frankly, all those years that you've been working as an insurance agent, you've paid way more in taxes into this system. And you'll never exhaust what you've already done. And here's the other thing, Cliff, what you've built, the momentum, everything you've got going on, you're going to earn more money. You're going to pay more taxes in 1 month than you will ever take from this system moving forward at some point. Go apply. And then everybody else, the other 8 people behind that, supported that, and they all said yes, move the the jerk from the group. So
Yeah.
and I did. I removed that person from the group. But this is the peer group. This is what I'm talking about. Without this encouragement, without these people who help me see it from outside of the perspective of my limiting beliefs, my fears, my feelings of insecurity, my feelings of lack of self-confidence, people who are able to help press me on towards what they see in me that sometimes I struggle to see in myself.
Mm.
Upgrade your peer group. So here are the 5. Work on your money mindset. I encourage you to get a book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker, E-K-E-R. This book will radically shift the way you think about money. The second one, understand that you need to shift your identity. You are in sales. If you are going to be full-time self-employed, you must learn how to sell effectively, and you must dedicate time to sales and marketing
It's a
in
big
your
one.
business. Number 3, self-discipline and routine. Block out your time, create some routines, and stick to it, and get as much help and accountability in this area as you possibly need. It doesn't matter if you have no self-discipline at all. I am proof that you can go from having no self-discipline to being an incredibly disciplined person. It can be done, and you must do it. And the fourth one is self-care. If you do not get yourself into a peaceful, relaxed state on a daily basis, you will consistently be in high beta brainwave states, which is the same as fight or flight. That means that your cortisol levels are going to continue to raise through your body. It's going to allow you to think all sorts of like, I'm going to get really anxious. I'm going to go and do lots of activity. But what you will lack is the ability to communicate with your prefrontal cortex of your brain.
Mm.
Literally every single day, you are shut off from the creative thought, the solution
Mm.
focused part of your brain.
Wow.
Every day, you must be in a relaxed state at some point, at least 10, 15 minutes of prayer and meditation and appreciation and a feeling of everything is going well in my life. There's so much to be thankful for. At least 10 to 15 minutes of every day must be in that state for you to succeed. And then number 5, upgrade your peer group. Your life, your business, everything you experience, you will have your life, the quality of everything will be the direct reflection of the people you spend the most time with.
I love that. I love all 5 of those. That is amazing. That is awesome. And all of these tips, whether you're transitioning or even in a business, or if you're in a business right now, you think about transitioning into something different, even a lot of this still applies because we put our nose to the grindstone, we start going at it, and some of these things can slip from us. But money mindset, like I believe, is a continuous thing. Like I continuously work on my money mindset. The book you mentioned, Secret of Millionaire Mind, T. Harv Eker, I'll put a link of that in the description so everyone can have that for sure. And I want to ask you a few other questions here. We cover a lot in the mindset, but I would just know, in your opinion, right? How important is resilience on this entrepreneur journey? Like, what advice would you give someone who's potentially like feeling discouraged or overwhelmed by the challenges of running a business? And we know that there are challenges.
Well, understand that challenges are great. One of the situations that a lot of people face when they're starting a business is, what if I fail? What if this doesn't work? What if this action item doesn't work? What if this doesn't work? It's wonderful. Every
Mm,
time you fail, you will learn something new. In fact, what you want to do is you want to create a plan for how you're going to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. And just recognize that early off, you don't have enough data to work with to figure out what plan is going to work and what's not going to work. So every time
mm,
you create a plan and a piece of it fails miserably, you've got new data. So now you've got data of what not to do, what doesn't work, and you can change your approach and evaluate your results over and over again. And you will only learn how to succeed once you've learned so many things about what doesn't work. The people who succeed in life, who are out there living the life of what you think is your dreams, they're living that life because they failed more times than you've ever tried.
wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. I think I heard Damon John mention it one time. The reason why he's successful is because he moves from failure to failure faster than anyone else. He's like,
Absolutely.
I will move from failure to failure faster than you, and that's one of the reasons why he's successful. I think that just what you said just echoes a lot of that. So I love that. One other question. So looking back on your journey, you shared some really amazing mindset thing, and this is like I think this is a big layer of the surface, but there's also more. But what would you say is probably like one of the most significant mindset shifts that you've made that have truly transformed your experience as a business owner?
The biggest mindset shift that I've ever experienced is the understanding of what a belief is. And I have an
Mm,
entire opening keynote address of a conference that I used to host called Free the Dream Conference. By the way, you can get this for free at mindsetanswerman.com/free. It's titled All Beliefs Have Consequences. But for me, what I recognized and what I had learned is that everything that I hold as truth is actually just a belief.
ah,
And most of those beliefs I picked up when I was a kid because of something my mom and dad said, and they picked it up because of something their mom and dad said, and they picked it up
hmm
because of or it was my religious leaders of the day, or it was my peers at school, the teachers, and we don't have to go very far to see that there's a lot of people who have a lot of limiting beliefs.
yes, true.
But when we're 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, we don't have the ability to constructively consider, is what my teacher stating a belief that is limiting?
Mm,
All right. But our teacher in school, we're taught they're an authority figure. They're here to educate us. They have our best interest at heart. And so they tell us something as an absolute truth. Money doesn't go on tree. The harder, you have to work hard to earn your
hmm
money, all these things. And you got all of these different statements
Yeah.
coming in, and we've adopted them, and now we believe them. And everything we experience in our thought life and our emotional life comes from our beliefs, and we're unconscious of most of them. But if once we become conscious of them, we're like, but yeah, it's true." And so the biggest thing that I
hmm
learned, the biggest epiphany, was to understand that a belief is nothing more than a thought that I
Mm,
have a feeling of certainty is true. It doesn't mean that it's true. It's just that it's a thought that I feel certain is true. Another way of saying it is a belief is nothing more than a thought that I've had a habit of thinking.
that's
And as
powerful.
soon as I learned that, I began to learn the power of questioning everything.
Mm,
Every belief that I have, I'm willing to question.
wow. That's a big one. I could see how that is there because I've gone through myself. I've gone through life coaching, and part of that life coaching journey, it is really looking at that, like where are thoughts that brings up emotions that end up giving us, that ends up making us do the things that we do to get the results that we get. And when we start looking and questioning, like, wait, is this real? Is it made up? Where did I get this from? And it's extremely powerful. And um, the training you mentioned, can you drop the link one more time? I'll put it in the description, but he says mindsetanswerman.com/free, correct?
Yep. Mindsetanswerman.com/free. There's a very big, bold promise that says, give me 60 minutes and I'll literally change your life. And I mean it. It absolutely, you will not be able to experience the same results that you are getting in life that you've been struggling with ever again. You will learn exactly how to change the actions that you take. You'll understand that you cannot change those actions until you change how you think and feel, because how you think and feel determines what actions you're going to take. But you will
Mm,
never be able to change your habitual thinking and feeling without uncovering what your beliefs are that cause that thinking and feeling in the first place. And in this talk, I'm simply going to teach you 4 things. Number 1, how to discover what beliefs are holding you back. Most people are unaware of 90% of what causes the emotional reactions inside of them. So number 1, you'll learn exactly how to discover unconscious beliefs. Number 2, you'll be able to discover what was the source of those. And it's important so that you understand they're not yours. You just picked it up from somebody else and collected it, and you've been holding it in your backpack ever since. All right. Number 3, you'll learn how to disassociate from those limiting beliefs. And number 4, and this is very important, you'll need to replace those with empowering alternative beliefs. And I will also, as a bonus, teach you how to condition those new beliefs, because your old beliefs have been conditioned. You need to condition the new empowering alternative beliefs. Once you do this, if you change one belief, you'll never be able to think and feel the same way ever again about that. And when you change how you think and feel, you will act differently. And when you act differently, you will have a different result in life. It is a guarantee your life will never be the same. You can get that talk for free at mindsetanswerman.com/free. By the way, I am a salesperson. I am a marketing person. Within a couple of hours of signing up, you'll get an email that says, "Did you get what you were promised?" And there's an offer in there to buy the full Free the Dream course for $197. Do not buy it. Instead, if you sign up and if you watch the entire opening keynote address and you hit reply to that email with a little link to buy it for $197, if you will mention that you heard this message here today, put free course in the email subject line, email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. I'll give you the full course for free.
Well, that's very generous of you. I appreciate that so much. And everyone, that again is mindsetanswerman.com/free. And once you get that, a few hours later, you get an email saying, it's going to be, did you get what I was promised? Right?
Yep.
Watch the video, watch it in its entirety. 60 minutes. There's very few people who will give you a free training that can transform your life completely. So take advantage of that and reply to that email and get free access to the full course, because it could be truly transformational. And from our conversation today, you can definitely see Cliff has gone through. He's gone through this. He's not an amateur, a business owner. He's a master business strategist, right? He's a mindset coach, a master mindset coach that's been through the online business journey and understands fully the pains and the challenges and the things that we go through. So again, thank you so much. I'm so appreciative for your time today, for sharing these words of wisdom. I'm not sure if I expressed, but there's been golden nuggets with drop left and right. So I appreciate that. Before we wrap up, before I let you go, is there final words of wisdom? And also, what's the best way for an audience or my audience listening to get in touch with you, get a hold of you, or to take any next steps, or just considering just continue and listen to your message?
Well, obviously, mindsetanswerman.com/free will get you into my email list, and I will continue to communicate with you there if you're open to that dialogue. And anytime you ever get an email from me, hit reply. You've got my ear.
Awesome.
And
excellent.
What was your other question? Did you ask me another question just now?
Yeah. Any final words of wisdom?
Final word of wisdom. The results that you are getting in life are absolutely perfect for the system of beliefs that you have.
Wow. That's powerful. That's awesome. Well, hey, everyone, that wraps up my conversation today. I can probably sit and talk to Cliff for hours and hours and hours and probably go many, many deep layers of the conversation. I love talking to business owners, love talking to tenured business owners, and I love talking to people with a positive outlook on life. And Cliff has all of these and above and plus more. So grab that free resource, mindsetanswerman.com/free. Again, thank you so much for popping me today. Everyone, my name is Arfan, owner of Grow Automate Scale, where we help coaches leverage the power of Facebook ads so they can connect with their ideal clients and increase their impact in the world. If you have any questions for Cliff, don't forget to hit reply on the emails. And again, thank you so much. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll catch you on the next interview. Thank you.
There you go. How was that?
Awesome. That was great. I loved it. Thank you so much, Cliff. I appreciate that. I can't even express that enough. I think it was excellent, and so much words of wisdom there. Even in my own journey, as I've gone through from transitioning in 2018, I gave I gave a 3 weeks notice because it was not mom and dad; it was a regular corporate job. So I gave my 3 weeks notice, and
By the way, just so,
said I
by
can
the way, just
attest
so
to
you know,
that.
we're still streaming live.
Oh, we are okay.
Yeah, I just want you
Yeah,
to know before you
sure.
go further.
Yeah. So yeah, I no, I'm just confirming everything you said in the sense of how important it is because there's some things that I wish I had known some of these things when I first started because I would have prevented a lot of the running into the walls and a lot of the failures could have been prevented just by having listened to something like this, having listen to our conversation like this. So I appreciate it so much.
Well, I thank you. I'm thrilled to have had the conversation and to know that you're reaching an audience out there who are in those earlier stages. It means everything for me to give this message to them because I want to help people avoid some of the pain and the suffering that I had experienced along the way. And if I can relieve some of that for some of them, it would be awesome. And so I
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Hey, real quick before we shut down the live stream here, what is the name of your URL where anybody who's watched this today can go to?
So they can go to growautomatescale.com, and that is my main website that can has all my stuff on there.
So let me see if I can do this real quickly here. I'm going to go to brand and I think I can do add overlay. No, I don't want to do that. Uh, Gonna close this pop-up. I don't want pop-ups. Let's see. Is there banners? Oh yeah, standard. There we go. So HTTP colon slash slash. What is it? Give me it one more time.
Growautomatescale.com.
Scale.com. I'm gonna hit banner and hit there. Is that it?
That's it right there.
Growautomatescale.com.
Yep.
And this has been Arfan Hussein. And thank you so much for interviewing me. I'm going to go ahead and bring you off screen. Stick around. I'll come to you after I shut down the live stream. Okay.
Sure thing.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. As I said at the opening, Arfan wanted to have me as a guest for his YouTube channel and for his podcast. And I said, I'd love to do that for you as long as I can record it on my end and stream it to my different channels because I've made a commitment. I am creating a public piece of content every single day, at least one piece of content during the month of May. And I am very appreciative of Arfan coming here and allowing me to do this interview on my stream. So make sure that you do check that out. Arfan can be found there, growautomatescale.com. And of course, don't forget that you can go to mindsetanswerman.com/free. Matter of fact, I go here. I'm pretty sure I have banners for that somewhere. I'm not in StreamYard enough here, but there we go. Check this one out. Mindsetanswerman.com/free, where you can get that free free opening keynote address. Just remember, you're going to get the email that says, "Did you get what you were promised?" It's going to try to sell you the course for $197. Now, if you want to, you could click and buy it. That's fine. A lot of people do, and everyone has been satisfied. But if you're hearing this message right now, hit reply on that email and say, I heard about the offer for the free course, and ask me and I'll send it to you. All right. Many blessings, and until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. See you.